While I was producing the 30 Days of Comics series last October, I received lots and lots of recommendations of comic books that I could read for the show. And I responded to every single one, and every single response went something like this. Thank you very much for the recommendation. Sounds like a cool book. Unfortunately, it's not part of the Comixology Unlimited service, which is what I'm using to get at the comic books I'm reading for the show, so I can't read it. And I'm too cheap to actually buy it, so. But I do sincerely thank you for the recommendation. Love and kisses, Andrew. Um, and so it went with one gentleman, Daniel Sasso, who recommended I read a book called Atom Wakes. And like with all the others, I responded back saying, I thank you very much. Unfortunately, it's not part of the program that I'm taking advantage of to source comics for the show. Thank you very much, though. And he wrote back to me and he says, no, you don't understand. I'm the creator of this book. I'd like to send you a copy so that you can review it. And I went over to Comixology and I looked at the creator profile. It goes, Daniel Sasso. I'm like, Daniel Sasso, Daniel Sasso. Oh, I totally didn't see that. So, yeah. So I guess, ethics in comics reviews, full disclosure, the comic I'm about to read and provide my thoughts on was provided to me by the creator. So use that information as you will. So today I'm going to read a book called Atom Wakes. No, not Alan Wake. Atom Wakes. Sounds very sci-fi to me. I honestly know nothing about this book, never heard of it, but Daniel was nice enough to send me a copy, so yeah, I'll give it a read and be right back with what I think. This is an interesting one. While Atom Wakes didn't totally grab me, there is a lot about it that I like. It's it's definitely a sci-fi story, and it's very high concept and very out there and very weird and very cool. Um, it starts out with an alien race of paramecium-looking dudes with tentacles coming out of their heads. And one particular one ends up, through its mad science experimentations, ends up kind of destroying the world and sends its essence through the fabric of reality to an alternate dimension where it comes in contact with its alternate self, which is the titular boy, Atom Wakes. Um, so that's weird enough for you. Uh, so Adam, we're not totally sure. The paramecium thing doesn't even really seem to understand what's going on. Adam's like 10 years old, so he doesn't understand what's going on. But they've joined somehow, and now they were uh, the same entity in different dimensions, but now they are kind of one, both human and both tentacly paramecium. Um, and the world that Atom Wakes exists in is a couple decades in the future, post World War III. There's one government, and it's set up like one government, world peace. Now everyone get a chip in your skin so we can track you and control you. And then it goes into things like there's an alien that's kind of, it almost goes they live with an alien uh, controlling a lot of things, and Atom Wakes is the one thing that can defeat him. But of course, Adam doesn't know that. He's just a boy trying to survive. And this is going to be impossible for me to recap in any coherent way. because it's very complicated, but to the credit of the writers, it's not confusing. It makes sense as you read it. You start out with the first chapter is the other planet, other dimension, paramecium tentacle monster things, and then you follow Adam Wakes and what happens to him and his family. And what happened to them is that they tried to drop off the grid because the big bad one government is coming after them. So they live out in the middle of nowhere with a couple other people for a decade, but then the big bad government finds them and drops a bomb on them, which incinerates all of them except Adam Wakes, who's now somehow he's not exactly human anymore. He's super strong. He can survive standing in a fire. So he runs away, and he runs into other people who've been living in a bunker for several years. And then there's a story on how they got down there and the ties between Adam's family and the people who live in the bunker. And when I say it like that, it sounds cliched in that forced coincidence kind of way, but it's scripted in a way that it actually works pretty nicely. I mean, I guess it is kind of movie or fictional story convenient that Adam just happens to run into the other family while he's running around, but that's okay. The story needs to happen. And then they live in the bunker, and we learn the story of how that family got in the bunker and what the father, who was a general in the war and found a clone of the alien that's controlling everything, that gained consciousness and paired with him to fight the power. It goes all over the place. It's incredibly imaginative and very unique in a way that this story obviously is taking influences from all over the place and combining them into something new. It works. Not perfectly. I will criticize it in a couple areas. I don't think the writing is as strong as it could be. It's effective, and the story structure is organized in a coherent manner that's easy to follow, but a lot of the dialogue and story beats can be a little bit on the nose, might be a way to put it. Not in a totally off-putting way, but I think the story and the structure and the progression is there. I just think the writing is not as mature as it could be. But that's something that can be worked on and expanded. This is the first 5-issue. What I read was apparently the first 5 issues in what's projected to be a 30-issue arc. And I already noticed some improvements as the story continued. For instance, another criticism I have is the way the word balloons are organized. Make it, until you figure out the way that the layout artist is laying out the word balloons, it can be really difficult to figure out who's talking in what order. Because the layout is typically, you'll have two people talking, one person's word balloons are on the far left side of the panel, and the other person's word balloons are on the far right. And it's supposed to be read first guy, then next guy, then next guy, then next guy. But you kind of, since they're so removed, you kind of read one word balloons and then the other, and then you realize that it's supposed to be alternating dialogue. And sometimes, even though the word balloon on the right is above the one on the left, it's actually the second thing that should be read. Now, as it progresses, starting with like issue 4 or so, the layout gets a lot better as far as where word balloons go. They get closer together, and it becomes a lot more obvious the order in which you're supposed to read the word balloons. Also, I really like the art. I did the 30 Days of Comics thing, and I didn't see anything that really looked like this. It's very colorful. I especially like the opening chapter with the tentacly paramecium things. It's just really interesting to look at. The way the artists are drawing, are using shapes and color and shading is just really interesting to look at. Where it falls flat a bit for me is in the rendering of humans. The way humans are drawn are not good. um, but they're at least consistent. If you watch my 30 Days of Netflix, you'll notice one of the things I would complain about is when characters would go off model. While I don't like the way human beings are drawn in this comic series, I find them kind of ugly. Um, I never had a problem figuring out which character was which. So while I don't really care for the way the humans are rendered, they're at least rendered consistently so you know who is who in any individual panel, and that's an important thing. But aside from that, anything that's not a human is actually really well drawn. And again, even with human beings that aren't drawn in a way that I like, the line work, the coloring, the texturing, the shading, the shadowing is all really well done and quite unique in the comics that I've read. So just from an artistic standpoint, overlooking the frankly poorly drawn humans, it's really something to look at for the most part. There's some really cool art in this book. So yeah, it's really imaginative. It's incredibly high concept and epic, but you can tell that the authors really took pains to organize this in a digestible manner. Each issue manages to be about one certain thing. It doesn't just jump all over the place. I know I'm very scatterbrained in how I'm relating it, and it probably just sounds like a jumbled mess, but it's organized in a way that makes it understandable and digestible. Now that said, I can't say that I was blown over by the book, or it's something that like, oh my gosh, give me book 2, I must continue reading, but yeah, there was really a lot to like about this. And it ends with poor little Adam is just having a bad day. Basically, the whole world, almost literally, the whole world is against him. Everyone he's ever known or loved has been taken away from him, and now he's pissed. So you have a pissed off, confused 10-year-old with superpowers. Yeah, you kind of want to see where that's going from there, right? Because the very last panel is, the men in black storming the underground bunker. They've just gassed the place, so everyone down there is dead. Spoilers. Except Adam, because, well, I mean, if he can survive fire, he can probably survive nerve gas. And, the men in black storm the place, and he just literally punches the guy's hearts clean out. And not in how it would typically be done in one of those fun exploitation gore movies. You would have you hear someone's heart being punched out, and you think either plunging a fist into a chest and ripping the heart out like, Kano in the first Mortal Kombat, or punching straight through a torso. No, Adam Wakes throws a damn hook and just knocks the heart and half the rib cage out of the guy's chest cavity. So some inventive gore effects too. Oh, there's also a great bit where some kid gets her leg munched on by a hungry wolf, and Adam, so the wolf's like that, and Adam grabs the top of the wolf's head and just kind of yanks it off. And I kind of loved the expression on the wolf. It was kind of a expression of a cross between what the hell and ouch. It's just, I don't know if that was the intended expression, but I really enjoyed it. So yeah, a lot of good stuff in there. I think reading the bio about the authors, hey, thanks for reading our work thing at the end of this series, it sounds like this was Daniel and Mike, the other guy who wrote it with them, was their first major work. So yeah, I think you guys are off to a good start. So congrats on getting the book published, and it's being sold on Comixology. And I, if anything, my recommendations to you would be better organization of word balloons to make it easier for the reader to understand the flow of dialogue. Daniel, work on how you draw people, because it's not very good, but everything else is really good. So I have faith in you. Keep an eye on dialogue, because some of it is a little... If you read it out loud... I know it's a comic book, but sometimes you read it out loud, it's like, I don't really buy that anyone would actually say it that way. What's communicated is what needs to be communicated. It's just some of the phrasing comes off as ham-handed and on the nose. Also, there's some weird... I don't know how to describe this exactly, but in some of the word balloons, it looks like there's a couple horizontal lines missing. It almost looks like, if you're familiar with what it looks like when a video game tears, basically you have an entire frame, and then you have the next frame, which includes part of the last frame, so you get like a line in the middle of the screen where things aren't quite lining up. Some of the word balloons do that. You're getting a tear in some of the word balloons, which is a little odd. Happens once every 10 to 15 pages. It's not a huge deal, but something you might want to look into. But yeah, other than that, that's a lot of good stuff. Again, didn't totally grab me, but there was definitely a lot I liked here. So thanks for sending me the book. I enjoyed reading it, and I certainly wish you and your partner the best of luck in continuing this project and any other projects you work on in the future. Take care.